Admiral Hyunwoo stood in the command center of Luna Station, watching the stars through the massive viewing window. The coffee in his hand had gone cold an hour ago, but he did not notice. His mind was focused on the reports coming from the outer colonies. Trade routes were changing, alien ships were avoiding human space, and something big was happening in the galaxy. The door behind him opened with a soft hiss. Commander Boram walked in carrying a data pad and wearing the serious expression that meant bad news. She had been his tactical officer for 5 years, and Hyunwoo had learned to read her moods like weather patterns. "Admiral, we have received a priority transmission," Boram said, her voice tight with concern. It came through the emergency channels encrypted with old Terran defense codes. Hyunwoo turned from the window and set down his cold coffee. "Show me." Boram activated the main display screen. Static filled the air as the transmission began to play. The image was poor, breaking up every few seconds, but they could make out a strange figure speaking. The being looked like a cross between a fish and a person, with smooth blue-green skin and large dark eyes. Water seemed to flow around it, suggesting it was speaking from some kind of underwater environment. "This is Ambassador HFY of the Villani Confederation." The alien's voice came through the speakers, translated by the computer into clear Korean. "We send this message to any who might hear it, though we fear it may be too late. Our worlds are dying. Our people are being murdered. The Korthak Empire has come to our system with ships of war and weapons of death." The image flickered and nearly disappeared before stabilizing again. HFY continued, and now they could see fear in those large alien eyes. "We have tried to fight, but our defense fleets are broken. The Korthak use weapons that poison our water and dissolve our shells. Our children hide in the deep places, but even there they are not safe. We have perhaps 3 of your standard cycles before our last world falls." Hyunwoo felt his jaw tighten. He had heard of the Korthak Empire. They were insect-like beings who conquered other species and used them as slaves. The galactic community mostly ignored them because they stayed in their own region of space, until now. "We know the reputation of humanity," HFY went on. "You are called Deathworlders by many. Some fear you, others think you are too violent for civilized company. But we have heard other stories. Stories of humans who help those who cannot help themselves. We offer all we have. Our rare minerals, our water purification technology, our friendship, if you will help us survive." The transmission began to break up more badly. Through the static, they heard HFY's final words. "We do not ask you to die for strangers. We ask you to let us live for our children." The screen went dark. The command center was quiet for a long moment. "How long since this was sent?" Hyunwoo asked. Boram checked her data pad. 14 hours, sir. It would have taken time to reach us through their relay systems, so we have less than 3 cycles. Hyunwoo walked to his command chair and sat down heavily. "What do we know about the Villani?" "Peaceful traders, mostly," Boram replied, calling up files on her pad. "They live in underwater cities on 3 worlds in the Kepler 442 system. The water on their planets is rich in minerals that are very valuable for making starship hulls. They have never been involved in any wars that we know of." "And the Korthak?" "Different story entirely." Boram's expression darkened. "Insectoid species, highly militaristic. They organize like a hive, with war princes leading fleets and a central queen giving orders. They have conquered at least 12 other species in the past century. The Galactic Council considers them a regional problem and mostly ignores them." Hyunwoo stood up and began pacing. This was how he thought best, walking back and forth while his mind worked through problems. "Have the Villani contacted anyone else?" "Unknown, but likely," Boram said. "This kind of distress call would go to every major power. The question is whether anyone else will respond." As if summoned by her words, another officer entered the command center. Lieutenant Taemin was young but reliable, and he handled communications with the other human colonies and allied species. He looked excited and worried at the same time. "Admiral, we are receiving reports from our embassy on Centauri Prime," Taemin said quickly. "The Villani have indeed contacted other powers, the Centauri Union, the Free Worlds Alliance, even the Hegemony. All have refused to help. Refused? Hyunwoo stopped pacing. Why? They say it is too far away, too dangerous, not worth the cost, Taimin replied, reading from his notes. The Centauri ambassador said, and I quote, "One does not fight the Korthak Empire over a few fish people and some minerals." Boram made a disgusted sound. Typical. When it is not their worlds burning, they find excuses. Hyunwoo resumed his pacing, but now his steps were faster, more aggressive. What about our fleet status? How many ships can we deploy immediately? That depends on how many you want to send, Boram said, pulling up more data. We have 47 warships currently in Sol system or nearby colonies. Another 23 are on patrol routes but could be recalled within 2 days. And the Korthak fleet? Intelligence estimates at least 200 ships based on what they used for their last conquest. They favor overwhelming numbers and siege tactics. The command center doors opened again, and this time Captain Min Ho entered. He was the commanding officer of the heavy cruiser Sol's Thunder, one of humanity's most powerful warships. Min Ho was known for taking dangerous missions and bringing his crew home alive. "Admiral," Min Ho said with a quick salute, "I heard about the transmission. Sol's Thunder is ready for immediate deployment if you need reconnaissance." That was quick, Hyunwoo said with a slight smile. "You were listening to communications. Again, were not you?" "A captain needs to know what is happening in the galaxy," Min Ho replied without shame. "My crew is already preparing for departure. We can be in the Kepler 442 system within 6 days if we push the engines." Hyunwoo stopped pacing and looked at all 3 officers. These were good people, loyal and brave. But what he was thinking about would put them all in danger, along with thousands of other humans. The smart thing to do would be to send a small force, maybe just Min Ho's ship, to investigate. The safe thing would be to do nothing at all, like the other powers. "Boram, what do you think the other powers are expecting us to do?" he asked. "Probably nothing," she answered honestly. "Or maybe send a token force that will get destroyed, so they can say later that even the famous human Deathworlders could not stop the Korthak." "And what do you think we should do?" Boram met his eyes steadily. "I think we should show them what Deathworlders really do when someone asks for help." Min Ho nodded agreement. "My crew did not join the defense force to watch aliens commit genocide, while politicians make excuses." Taemin looked nervous but determined. "The communications I have been monitoring suggest the Korthak think humans are dangerous, but not crazy enough to fight a war for strangers. Maybe it is time to prove them wrong." Hyunwoo walked back to the viewing window and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, alien children were hiding in the depths of their water cities, waiting for death to find them. Their parents had asked for help from anyone who would listen, and everyone had turned away except possibly humanity. He thought about his own children, safe on Earth. He thought about the founding principles of the Terran Defense Force, written after humanity's first contact with aliens. "We protect those who cannot protect themselves regardless of species or distance." Most people thought those were just pretty words for ceremonies. Maybe it was time to prove they were more than that. "Min Ho, take Sol's Thunder to Kepler 442, Hyunwoo said, turning back to his officers. "Full stealth approach. Assess the situation and report back. Do not engage unless you have no choice." "Understood, Admiral." "Boram, I want a full fleet readiness report within 4 hours. Every ship, every crew, every weapon system. And send a message to Defense Command on Earth. Tell them I am requesting authorization for a full military deployment." "Yes, sir." "Mateys, I ask what you plan to tell them when they ask why." Hyunwoo walked to his command chair and sat down. He picked up his cold coffee and took a sip, making a face at the bitter taste. But he did not put it down. "I plan to tell them that no one deserves to watch their children die while the galaxy turns away." Fleet Admiral Dayun stood on the bridge of the dreadnought Inchen's Wrath and watched the largest human military formation in history take shape around her. 47 warships hung in space like deadly stars, their hulls reflecting the light of Seoul as they prepared for the longest journey any of them had ever made. This was not just a rescue mission anymore. This was humanity making a statement to the galaxy. Captain Minho's reconnaissance report had arrived 3 days ago, and the news was worse than anyone had expected. The Korthak had not just invaded the Villani system, they were systematically destroying it. 2 of the 3 Villani homeworlds were already dead, their oceans boiled away by orbital bombardment. The 3rd world, SciFiPrime, was holding out in underwater cities, but barely. "Admiral, the modification teams report they are ready for the final tests," said Commander Solbin, the fleet's chief engineer. She had been working without sleep for 60 hours, leading teams that were retrofitting human ships for underwater combat. Solbin was young but brilliant, and she understood that sometimes you had to rebuild everything in a few days or watch people die. "Show me what you have done," Daun said, following Solbin to the tactical display table. The display showed a cutaway view of a human destroyer. Solbin pointed to the modifications her teams had made. "We replaced the standard missile, tubes with underwater torpedo systems. The torpedoes can function in water up to 300 atmospheres of pressure. We also added pressure-resistant boarding pods that can deploy Marines directly into flooded areas." "What about the bigger ships?" Daeun asked. "The cruisers and dreadnoughts were harder," Solbin admitted. "But we managed to install water-penetrating plasma cannons. They lose some power when firing through water, but they can still punch through Korthak armor." The key insight was realizing that most alien ships are not designed for aquatic combat. They will have the same problems we would have had before these modifications. Daun nodded approvingly. "Human engineering at its best. Identify the problem, find a solution, implement it faster than anyone thinks possible." "And the Marines?" "Lieutenant Dong-hyun can brief you on that," Solbin replied. As if summoned, Lieutenant Dong-hyun approached the display table. He was a compact, muscular man who moved with the controlled grace of someone trained to fight in zero gravity, high gravity, and now apparently underwater. His Marines had been practicing in the flooded training chambers for 3 days straight. "Admiral, we have adapted quickly to aquatic combat," Dong-hyun reported. "The modified exoskeletons allow us to operate at depth while maintaining full mobility. Our weapons work underwater, and we have developed tactics for fighting in 3-dimensional underwater environments. The advantage we have is that humans are naturally better adapted for this than most aliens." "How so?" Daeun asked. "Most galactic species evolved on worlds with stable environments," Dong-hyun explained. "They specialize for one type of combat: space, land, or air. Humans evolved on a world that tried to kill us in every possible way, so we learned to fight anywhere. The Korthak are used to fighting land battles and space battles, but not underwater battles. We think this will surprise them." Dr. Tae Young, the fleet's xenobiologist, joined the group around the display table. He looked tired but excited, the way scientists got when they made important discoveries. "Admiral, I have been studying the Korthak biological data from Captain Minho's reconnaissance, and I believe we can exploit their physiology." "Explain," Daun said. "The Korthak are hive-minded insects," Tae Young said, calling up biological charts on the display. "They communicate through pheromones, chemical signals that coordinate their actions. I have developed an aerosol compound that will disrupt these pheromones without harming other species. If we can deploy it during battle, their coordination will collapse." Daeun studied the data. "How do we deploy it?" "The atmospheric processors on our ships can be modified to release the compound," Solbin said immediately. "It would take about 6 hours to make the changes." "Do it," Daun ordered. "What else do we know about Korthak tactics?" Intelligence Officer Yujin stepped forward. She had been monitoring alien communications for days, piecing together information about the enemy. "Admiral, I have intercepted some Korthak military transmissions. They are planning something called a core cracker attack on SciFiPrime. From context, it appears they intend to crack the planetary crust and boil away the remaining oceans." "When?" Daun asked, feeling ice form in her stomach. "Soon. The transmission suggests they are waiting for some kind of equipment to arrive. Based on the timing, we estimate we have less than 2 cycles to reach the system before they execute this plan." Daeun turned to the navigation officer. "Commander Park, What is our best possible transit time to Kepler 442? Pushing the engines to maximum safe limits, we can make it in one cycle in 18 hours, Commander Park replied. But that would stress the drive system significantly. The alternative is arriving to find a dead world, Da-un said grimly. Make the preparations. We leave in 6 hours. As her officers dispersed to carry out orders, Da-un walked to the front of the bridge and looked out at her fleet. Each ship represented hundreds of human lives, people who had volunteered to travel across the galaxy to fight for strangers. The crews knew they would be outnumbered at least 4 to 1. They knew many of them might not come home. But they also knew that sometimes doing the right thing was more important than doing the safe thing. Admiral, came a voice behind her. She turned to see Communications Officer Jae-sung approaching with a worried expression. We are receiving multiple transmissions from various galactic powers. They want to know our intentions. What kind of transmissions? Da-un asked. The Centauri Union is demanding to know why we are mobilizing a fleet without consulting the Galactic Council. The Free Worlds Alliance is asking if we intend to claim the Kepler 442 system for ourselves. The hegemony is suggesting that interfering with Korthak expansion could destabilize the entire region. Da-un felt a familiar anger building in her chest. These same powers had refused to help the Villani, but now they were concerned about human actions. And what does Earth Command want us to tell them? Actually, Admiral, Earth Command sent their own message, Jae-sung said, looking more comfortable. Defense Minister Kim sends her approval for the operation and asks if you need additional resources. Good. Da-un thought for a moment about how to respond to the alien governments. Send the following message to all concerned parties. The Terran Defense Force is responding to a request for humanitarian assistance. Our intentions are to prevent genocide. Any power wishing to join this effort is welcome. Any power wishing to obstruct this effort should reconsider. That is quite direct, Admiral, Jae-sung observed. Sometimes direct is what the situation requires, Da-un replied. And add this at the end. The galaxy is about to learn what Deathworlders do when someone asks for help. As Jae-sung went to send the messages, Da-un returned her attention to the fleet preparations. Shuttles moved between ships, carrying supplies and personnel. Maintenance crews worked frantically to complete the underwater combat modifications. The massive dreadnought engines were being warmed up for the long journey ahead. Dr. Tae-young appeared at her side. Admiral, there is something else you should know about the Korthak communications Yu-jin has been intercepting. What is it? They know we are coming. They have been monitoring galactic communications and they know about our fleet mobilization. But here is the interesting part. They are not sure what to make of it. Da-un raised an eyebrow. Meaning? The Kyo? Korthak understand human military capability in general terms, Tae-young explained. They know our ships are fast and our weapons are effective, but they do not understand human psychology. The concept of traveling across the galaxy to fight for strangers makes no sense to them. They keep referring to humans as the unpredictable Deathworlders in their communications. Let them stay confused, Da-un said. Confusion leads to mistakes. There is more, Admiral. I intercepted a communication from a Korthak war prince to his fleet commanders. He said, and I am translating as closely as possible, the mammals from the Death World come with many ships, but they come to a place far from their territory to fight for prey that is not theirs. This behavior does not match any conquest pattern. We understand. Prepare for irregular tactics. Da-un smiled grimly. Irregular tactics, they have no idea. Commander Solbin returned to report that all modifications were complete and tested. Lieutenant Dong-hyun confirmed that his Marines were ready for deployment. Yu-jin reported that the pheromone disruption systems were installed and functional. One by one, the ship captains reported their readiness for departure. Admiral, Commander Park announced from his station, all ships report ready for hyperspace jump. Daeyeon took one last look around the bridge of Incheon's Wrath. Her crew was focused and determined. Through the viewing windows, she could see the other ships of her fleet, each one carrying brave humans who had chosen to risk everything for strangers. She walked to her command chair and activated the fleet communication system. Her voice would now reach every ship, every crew member in the formation. This is Fleet Admiral Daeyeon to all ships, she began. The human fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler 442 system, like predators arriving at a watering hole. Admiral Da Yun watched the tactical displays light up with contact markers as her ships spread into attack formation. 3. Korthak patrol squadrons were already moving to intercept them, their insectoid vessels approaching in the rigid geometric patterns that marked their military doctrine. Contact bearing 27 Mark 15, reported Sensor Officer Hansol. From his station, 12 enemy ships closing fast. They are signaling the rest of their fleet. Let them signal. Da-un replied calmly. Commander Park, take us directly toward the largest patrol group. All ships, prepare for combat. On the bridge of the destroyer, Busan Lightning, Captain Jin-A received the fleet orders and smiled. She had been waiting 3 days for this moment. Her ship was fast, maneuverable, and crewed by humans who thought high-G combat maneuvers were fun instead of deadly. Helm, set intercept course for the lead Korthak vessel, Jin-A ordered. Engineering, prepare for emergency acceleration. Marines, secure for combat maneuvers. Captain, her tactical officer said nervously, that course will take us directly into their formation. Standard doctrine suggests we maintain distance and use our missile advantage. Standard doctrine is for fighting other humans, Jin-A replied. These are aliens who do not understand how Deathworlders fight. Helm, execute. Busan Lightning leaped forward like a striking snake. The destroyer's engines pushed the ship to accelerations that would crush most alien crews, but Jin-A's people were strapped in and ready. They had trained for this their entire careers, turning their homeworld's harsh gravity into a weapon. The Korthak patrol leader watched in confusion as the human ship charged directly at his formation. His tactical computers insisted this was suicide. Human ships were smaller than Korthak vessels, less heavily armored, carrying fewer weapons. The logical response to facing superior numbers was to maintain distance and fight defensively. But Captain Jin-A was not interested in logic. As Busan Lightning reached the center of the Korthak formation, she gave the order her crew had been waiting for. Emergency turn, 12 Gs, full port rotation. Fire all weapons as we spin. The destroyer twisted through space in a maneuver that would have killed an insectoid crew instantly. Plasma cannons and missile tubes fired in all directions as the ship spun, turning Jin-A's vessel into a deadly tornado of destruction. 3 Korthak ships exploded before their crews could react to the impossible human tactics. This is Busan Lightning to all ships, Jin-A broadcast on the combat frequency. Deathworlder advantage confirmed. The bugs cannot handle our acceleration tolerance. Press the attack. Across the battle zone, human ships began executing maneuvers that violated every principle of civilized space combat. The heavy cruiser Souls, Thunder under Captain Minho performed a combat dive that pulled 15 Gs while firing its main guns. The escort frigate Daegu Striker used its superior maneuverability to position itself above a Korthak cruiser and unleash point-blank torpedo fire. On the flagship Incheon's Wrath, Admiral Da-un watched the first engagement with satisfaction. Signal all ships to proceed to HFY. We have a planet to save. The surviving Korthak patrol ships retreated toward their main fleet, broadcasting warnings about the unpredictable human tactics. But Da-un was not interested in space battles. Her real mission was on the planet below. HFY appeared on the main screen as a world under siege. The blue-green planet was covered with clouds of steam where Korthak orbital bombardment had superheated sections of the global ocean. Dark shapes moved through the water, Korthak submarines hunting the remaining Volani cities. Admiral, I am detecting massive underwater structures, reported Hansol. The Volani cities are built in deep ocean trenches, using the pressure and depth as natural defenses. And the Korthak response? They have deployed submarine fleets and underwater mining equipment. It appears they are trying to collapse the ocean floor to destroy the cities. Da-un turned to Commander Wu Jin, leader of the Marine assault teams. Commander, your Marines are about to make history. First underwater space-to-surface assault in human military records. Wu Jin grinned. My teams are ready, Admiral. We have been practicing in zero-gravity water combat for days. The Korthak will not expect us to be able to fight effectively in flooded environments. Deploy immediately. Priority targets are the Korthak submarines and mining platforms. Save as many Volani civilians as possible. The marine assault began with modified boarding pods launching from human ships and diving toward the planet's surface. Each pod was designed to penetrate the ocean and deploy teams directly into underwater combat zones. As the pods hit the water and began their descent, Wu Jin checked his equipment one final time. The modified exoskeleton felt comfortable around his body, providing protection while allowing full mobility in the high-pressure underwater environment. His plasma rifle was designed to function in water, and his tactical display showed the locations of other human teams descending around him. All teams, this is Wu Jin, he broadcast on the marine frequency. Remember that we are fighting to save civilians. The Volani are friendlies. They look like large fish people and will be trying to hide from the Korthak. The insects are hostiles. They look like armored bugs and will be trying to kill everything that moves. The first pod reached combat depth near a Volani city that was under attack by Korthak forces. Through the murky water, Wu Jin could see the alien architecture, graceful spires and domes built from some kind of coral-like material. Korthak soldiers in bulky mechanical suits were blasting their way through the city's outer defenses. Teams Alpha through Delta secure the city perimeter, Wu Jin ordered. Teams Echo and Foxtrot evacuate civilians. Teams Golf and Hotel destroy the Korthak mining equipment. The underwater battle was unlike anything in human military history. Marines used their superior agility to outmaneuver the clumsy Korthak mechanical suits. The insects had designed their equipment for overwhelming firepower, but they had not considered fighting an enemy that could move through water like it was their natural element. Private Yunjung found herself face-to-face with a Korthak warrior twice her size. The insectoid raised a massive plasma cutter, intending to slice her in half. But Yunjung had grown up swimming in Earth's oceans, and she understood three-dimensional combat in a way the Korthak could not match. She twisted through the water, using the alien's own momentum against it, and fired her plasma rifle directly into the weak joint where the creature's helmet met its armor. The Korthak warrior's suit filled with water and sank toward the ocean floor. This is Private Yunjung to all teams, she broadcast. The bugs cannot swim well. Use the water against them. They are slow and clumsy down here. Meanwhile, Dr. Tae-young was monitoring the battle from the science station aboard Incheon's Wrath. His pheromone disruption compound was ready for deployment, but he needed the right moment to release it for maximum effect. Admiral, the main Korthak fleet is approaching, reported Yu Jin from her intelligence station. 200 ships in full battle formation. They are demanding our immediate surrender. Any response from the Korthak commander? Da-un asked. Yes, Admiral. War Prince Thaxos is requesting a personal meeting. He says he wants to understand why mammals would travel so far to fight for prey that is not theirs. Da-un considered. This meeting with the enemy commander was dangerous, but it might also provide an opportunity to learn about Korthak psychology and tactics. Dr. Tae-young, what do you know about Korthak honor codes? They have a warrior culture based on individual combat prowess, Tae-young replied, checking his xenological databases. War princes gain authority by defeating other warriors in single combat. If their leader challenges you personally, refusing might be seen as cowardice by his subordinates. And if I accept, it could disrupt their chain of command if you win. But Admiral, these creatures are bred for combat. They are stronger and faster than humans. Da-un smiled grimly. Stronger and faster, perhaps, but we have advantages they do not understand. She activated the fleet communication system. This is Admiral Da-yun to War Prince Thaxos. I accept your challenge. Single combat, your flagship, no weapons except plasma swords. When I win, you will withdraw your forces from this system. The response came quickly. Accepted, mammal. When I kill you, your species will understand the price of interfering with the Korthak Empire. As Da-un prepared to transfer to the enemy flagship, Commander, Wu Jin's voice crackled over the communication system from the underwater battle zone. Admiral, we have secured 2 Volani cities and evacuated approximately 10,000 civilians, he reported. But the Korthak are preparing to activate their core cracker device. We estimate 30 minutes before they can fracture the planetary crust. Understood, Commander. Hold your positions and continue evacuation efforts. I am about to have a conversation with their war prince that should change their priorities. Dayun walked to the shuttle bay, checking her plasma sword one final time. The weapon was a meter of contained energy that could cut through most known materials. But more importantly, it was light and fast, perfect for a human who understood that speed and endurance often mattered more than raw strength. Admiral Dayun stepped aboard the Korthak command ship and immediately understood why these creatures had conquered so many worlds. The vessel was a monument to military power, with corridors wide enough for armies and walls covered in weapons displays. Everything was designed to intimidate visitors and demonstrate Korthak's superiority. War Prince Thaxos waited in the ship's central arena, a circular chamber with viewing galleries where his officers could watch the combat. The Korthak leader stood, 3 meters tall, his chitinous armor gleaming under harsh lights. Multiple arms held ceremonial weapons, and his compound eyes reflected no emotion that Da'un could recognize. "So you are the leader of the Deathworlders," Thaxos said, his voice translated through speakers built into the arena walls. "You are smaller than I expected. Your species' reputation suggests creatures of great size and strength." Da'un drew her plasma sword and activated it, the energy blade humming to life. "Our reputation comes from winning battles, not from looking impressive in armor. We shall see." Thaxos activated his own weapon, a massive energy blade that crackled with power. "Before we begin, satisfy my curiosity. Why do your people fight for strangers? The Vallani offer you minerals and technology, but you risk your lives for rewards you could obtain through peaceful trade elsewhere." "You would not understand," Da'un replied, circling slowly around the arena's edge. "Your species conquers others to make them slaves. Ours protects others to make them free." "Freedom is an illusion," Thaxos said, beginning his own circular movement. "The strong rule the weak. This is natural law throughout the galaxy. Your interference here violates the proper order." "The proper order," Da'un repeated. "Is that what you call genocide?" Without warning, Thaxos lunged forward with speed that would have overwhelmed most opponents. His blade swept in a wide arc designed to cut Da'un in half, but the human admiral had been expecting this. She dropped low and rolled sideways, letting the alien's momentum carry him past her position. As Thaxos recovered his balance, Da'un struck at his back leg with her plasma sword. The energy blade scratched his armor, but did not penetrate. The war prince spun around and brought his weapon down in a crushing overhead attack. Da'un barely dodged the strike, feeling the heat of the energy blade pass centimeters from her face. Thaxos was faster and stronger than any human, just as Dr. Tae Young had warned. But Da'un had advantages the alien did not understand. She had grown up on a world where everything tried to kill her. Earth had taught humanity to be persistence hunters, creatures who won not through overwhelming force, but through endurance and intelligence. Da'un began to implement the strategy that had allowed her species to survive and thrive on a death world. She retreated, forcing Thaxos to chase her around the arena. The Korthak war prince attacked with devastating strikes that could have shattered human bones, but Da'un was always just out of reach. She made him work for every attack, dodging and weaving while he exhausted himself with powerful but inefficient movements. "Stand still and fight with honor," Thaxos commanded, breathing heavily after several minutes of pursuit. "I am fighting with human honor," Da'un replied, still moving. "We do not fight to look impressive. We fight to win." Meanwhile, the battle for HFY was reaching its climax. Commander Wu Jin and his Marines had successfully evacuated most of the civilian population from the underwater cities, but the Korthak core cracker device was nearly ready to activate. "All teams converge on the primary drilling platform," Wu Jin ordered through the underwater communication system. "We need to destroy that machine before it cracks the planet's crust." The drilling platform was a massive Korthak construction that reached from the ocean surface down to the seafloor. Enormous mechanical drills were boring through the planet's crust while energy projectors prepared to fracture the underlying rock layers. If the device activated, it would trigger massive earthquakes and volcanic eruptions that would boil away the remaining oceans. Private Yunjung led her squad through the platform's lower levels, fighting through Korthak defenders who were becoming increasingly desperate. The insects had clearly not expected human marines to penetrate their underwater fortifications. "Sergeant Kim, we have reached the main power core," she reported, "but it is protected by some kind of energy shield. Our weapons cannot penetrate." "Shuriken." "Hold position," Sergeant Kim replied. "I am bringing up the heavy demolitions team." On the platform's upper levels, Corporal J-Ho and his engineers were working frantically to understand the Korthak technology. The control systems were completely alien, but human adaptability was proving valuable once again. "I think I understand their logic circuits," J-Ho announced. "These machines are designed like insect colonies. Everything follows simple rules, but the combined effect is complex. If we can disrupt the central coordination node, the entire system should shut down." "Where is the coordination node?" asked his team leader. "Based on the data flow patterns, it should be in the central spire, about 50 meters above the water surface." Above the ocean, Colonel Haywan was leading bomber squadrons in precision strikes against Korthak positions on SciFiPrime's second moon. The moon contained bioweapon factories that were producing the toxins used to poison Volani water supplies. "This is Haywan to all bomber crews," she announced over the squadron frequency. "Target the main production facility with penetration bombs. These weapons must not reach the planet's surface." Her pilots flew through electrical storms that would have grounded most alien aircraft. The moon's unstable atmosphere created constant lightning and electromagnetic interference, but humans had learned to fly in Earth's violent weather systems. What seemed impossible to other species was just another challenging flight condition to human pilots. "Direct hit on target Alpha," reported Lieutenant So-Young from her bomber. "Secondary explosions suggest we have destroyed their chemical storage tanks." Back in the arena aboard the Korthak command ship, Admiral Da-Yun was implementing the final phase of her strategy. War Prince Thaxos was beginning to slow down, his powerful attacks becoming less precise as exhaustion set in. This was the moment she had been waiting for. Instead of retreating, Da-Yun suddenly charged forward. Thaxos raised his weapon to block, but Da-Yun's attack was a feint. She rolled under his guard and struck upward with her plasma sword, targeting the weak joint where his arm connected to his torso. The energy blade penetrated Thaxos's armor and severed critical muscle groups. His primary weapon arm went limp, the energy sword clattering across the arena floor. "Impossible," Thaxos gasped, staggering backward. "No mammal should be able to defeat a Korthak war prince in single combat." "That is your problem," Da-Yun said, keeping her weapon ready. "You think in terms of what should be possible instead of what is possible. Humans learned long ago that survival depends on doing impossible things. She could have killed him then." Her plasma sword was at his throat, and Korthak honor codes would have accepted his death as legitimate. But Da-Yun made a choice that surprised everyone watching, including herself. "Medical assistance for War Prince Thaxos," she called to the Korthak officers in the viewing galleries. "His wounds are serious but not fatal if treated quickly." Thaxos stared at her with his compound eyes. "You spare my life? Why?" "Because killing you will not save the Volani," Da-Yun replied. "But having you alive to order your fleet to withdraw will save them." "I do not understand your mercy," Thaxos said as Korthak medics arrived to treat his wounds. "My species would not show such restraint to a defeated enemy." "That is another difference between your species and mine," Da-Yun said. "We fight to protect, not to dominate." Over the ship's communication system, she heard the voices of her officers reporting success across the battle zone. The Korthak core cracker device had been destroyed by Wu Jin's Marines. The bioweapon factories on the moon had been eliminated by Haiwan's bombers. The underwater cities had been secured and the civilian population evacuated to safety. "War Prince Thaxos," Da-Yun said formally, "by the terms of our combat, I claim victory. Order your forces to withdraw from this system." Thaxos looked around the arena at his watching officers. By Korthak law, he was obligated to honor the results of single combat. But more than that, he had witnessed something that challenged his understanding of the galaxy. Fleet Commander Vexthal, he called to his senior officer. Order all Korthak forces to withdraw from the Kepler 442 system immediately. But War Prince, Vexthal protested, we outnumber the humans 4-1. We could still achieve victory through conventional battle. No, Thaxos said firmly. We could achieve destruction, but not victory. These Deathworlders do not fight like any species we have encountered. They do not fight for conquest or resources or territory. They fight for principles that we do not understand, and that makes them more dangerous than their numbers suggest. As Tayun prepared to return to her own ship, Thaxos called out to her one final time. Admiral of the Deathworlders, what will you do now? You have saved the Vallani, but you are far from your home territory and still outnumbered by my fleet. Dayun paused at the arena entrance. Now we will help the Vallani rebuild their worlds, and we will make sure that everyone in the galaxy understands what happened here today and what did happen here today. 6 months after the Battle of Kepler 442, Admiral Hyunwoo stood in the rebuilt Vallani capital city and watched something that would have been impossible before humans arrived in the system. Alien children were playing together in the crystalline water gardens, their laughter echoing through the coral spires that housed the government buildings. Human engineering teams worked alongside Vallani architects to construct new defensive installations. The aquatic aliens had learned much about warfare in the past few months, but they had also learned about hope. Their cities now featured both beautiful artistic displays and practical military positions, a combination that reflected their partnership with humanity. The reconstruction is proceeding ahead of schedule, reported engineer Solbin, who had remained in the system to oversee the rebuilding efforts. The Vallani have adapted our defensive technologies to their underwater environment in ways we never imagined. Their cities are now stronger than they were before the Korthak attack. And the population recovery? Hyunwoo asked. Better than expected. The Vallani reproduce quickly when they feel safe, and the refugee populations from the destroyed worlds are establishing new colonies on previously uninhabited ocean floors. Dr. Tae Young estimates they will reach pre-war population levels within 5 years. Hyunwoo nodded approvingly. The Vallani had impressed him with their resilience. Like many species that survived to develop spaceflight, they had learned to adapt quickly to changing circumstances. But unlike most galactic civilizations, they had also learned to trust others who offered genuine help. Admiral, called Ambassador, SciFiPrime, approaching through the water-filled corridors of the government complex. The Vallani leader moved with the graceful efficiency of someone who had spent their entire life in aquatic environments. We have received the final reports from our intelligence networks throughout the galaxy. You will want to hear this information. They entered a briefing chamber where holographic displays showed star charts covering thousands of light years. Colored markers indicated different alien civilizations, trade routes, and military formations, but most interesting were the red warning beacons that marked areas of conflict. What am I looking at? Hyunwoo asked. The galactic response to your victory here, SciFiPrime replied. The Korthak Empire has withdrawn from 12 systems they were preparing to invade. 3 other aggressive species have cancelled expansion plans. The hegemony has begun peace negotiations with 2 of their border enemies. Why? Hyunwoo asked, though he suspected he knew the answer. Because everyone now knows that humans will intervene to prevent genocide, SciFiPrime explained. Your species has established a reputation as what the galactic community is calling guardian Deathworlders, beings powerful enough to enforce their moral standards across interstellar distances. On the holographic display, Hyunwoo could see new trade routes opening between previously hostile species. Diplomatic missions that had been stalled for decades were suddenly making progress. The galaxy was becoming more peaceful not because anyone had conquered it, but because everyone knew someone was watching. There is more, SciFiPrime continued. We have intercepted communications from 17 different species requesting defensive pacts with Earth. The Centauri Union, which refused to help us, is now offering humanity exclusive mining rights in exchange for protection guarantees. Hyunwoo smiled grimly. And what did Earth tell them? Your government's response was, I believe, quite direct. They said that species who refuse to help others in their time of need cannot expect others to help them in theirs. A communication alert chimed through the chamber's speakers. HFY activated the display to reveal Fleet Admiral Dayun speaking from the bridge of Inchen's Wrath, which was currently stationed near Earth. Admiral Hyunwoo, I hope the rebuilding efforts continue to go well, Dayun said. I am calling to inform you that the Galactic Council has made a formal request for humanity to address their assembly. About what? Hyunwoo asked. They want to officially designate humanity as a guardian species, with the authority to intervene in extinction-level conflicts anywhere in the galaxy. The vote was not even close. 437 in favor, 12 opposed, 8 abstentions. Hyunwoo was surprised. The Galactic Council rarely agreed on anything, and they had never created a guardian species designation before. What are the responsibilities that come with this authority? That is what they want to discuss. With us, Dayun replied. But according to the preliminary documents, guardian species are expected to maintain sufficient military forces to respond to genocide threats, investigate reports of extinction-level weapons development, and provide protection to any species that requests assistance against overwhelming aggression. Essentially, they want us to be the galaxy's police force, Hyunwoo observed. More like the galaxy's conscience, Daon corrected. They cannot make us act, but they can legitimize our actions when we choose to act. After the communication ended, Hyunwoo walked with HFY through the water gardens where children from multiple species played together. Human Marines taught Vellani youngsters how to swim in Earth-style strokes, while Vellani artists showed human children how to create sculptures from living coral. Do you think your species will accept this guardian designation? HFY asked. I think we already have, Hyunwoo replied. The question is whether we can handle the responsibility without becoming what we fought against, meaning power corrupts, Ambassador. History shows that species with the ability to enforce their will across the galaxy eventually start using that power for their own benefit instead of others' protection. We will have to be very careful not to become the Korthak Empire with better intentions. Their conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Dr. In Seo, a xenopolitical analyst who had been studying the galactic response to humanity's new status. She looked excited and worried in equal measure. Admiral, I have completed my analysis of alien fleet movements over the past 6 months, she reported. The results are both encouraging and concerning. Explain, Hyunwoo said. The encouraging news is that aggressive military expansion has decreased by 60% across the galaxy. Species that were planning wars of conquest are now focusing on defensive preparations instead. The threat of human intervention has created a stabilizing effect that no one anticipated. And the concerning news? Some species are preparing for war against us, Dr. Yunseo said bluntly. The hegemony is secretly building new ship classes specifically designed to counter human tactical advantages. The corporate syndicate is developing weapons that they think will be effective against Deathworld physiology. At least 6 minor powers have formed a defensive alliance they are calling the Anti-Guardian Coalition. Hyunwoo was not surprised. How long before they are ready to challenge us? Conservative estimate, 2 years. But Admiral, there is something else you need to know. My analysis suggests that most of these preparations are defensive rather than aggressive. They are not planning to attack human territory. They are preparing to resist human intervention in their own expansion plans. So they want to continue conquest and genocide but without human interference, HFY observed. Exactly. And there is one more factor that complicates everything. Some species are requesting human protection from other humans. Hyunwoo stopped walking. What do you mean? Several human colonies have started acting independently of Earth government, Dr. Yunseo explained. The colony at Proxima Centauri has declared itself a guardian protectorate and begun intervening in local conflicts without authorization. The mining consortium at Wolf 359 is using our new reputation to intimidate trade competitors. This was the scenario that Hyunwoo had been dreading. Humans were naturally independent, and giving them galaxy-wide authority to intervene in conflicts was bound to create situations where different human groups had different ideas about when and how to use that authority. "What does Earth Command want to do about unauthorized Guardian actions?" he asked. "They are sending Captain Ji-hoon's scout ship Daegu Explorer to investigate and report back," Dr. Yunseo replied. "But the larger question is whether humanity can maintain unified policies when our people are scattered across hundreds of light years." As if summoned by their conversation, Captain Ji-hoon's voice crackled over the communication system. "Admiral Hyunwoo, this is Daegu Explorer requesting immediate consultation. We have discovered something that changes everything." "Report, Captain." "Admiral, we have found evidence that someone is building weapons specifically designed to destroy entire planets. Not just military bombardment, actual planet-killing devices that would make the Korthak core crackers look like small construction tools." Hyunwoo felt ice form in his stomach. "Who is building these weapons?" "That is the problem, Admiral. The evidence suggests multiple species are involved, including some that publicly support the Guardian designation. It appears that our intervention in the Korthak situation has triggered an arms race. Everyone wants planet killers either to use against their enemies or to deter us from interfering with their activities." SciFiPrime's skin color shifted to a pattern that indicated deep concern. "Admiral, if multiple species develop planet-killing weapons,